Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and obviously, anyone that wants to catch this up at a later date. So, firstly, let's talk about energy. Energy is not the most exciting subject in the world, but it's really, really important. And obviously, cost-wise, it's become a big factor in the last year. So tonight, I want to give you some hints, some tips, some useful information to really kind of hopefully help you manage your utility spend, what to look out for, questions to ask when you're actually, purchasing your utility, and also how to cut some costs along the way. Because look, any business has struggled, or a lot of businesses have struggled in the last year. So we need to kind of see what we can do to manage it. So my name is Jeff Top. I am partnership manager here at Full Power Utilities, and we help businesses in all sorts of sectors really to manage utilities. You wouldn't believe it, but my old profession, I used to be a professional guitarist. So that wasn't exciting enough. I thought I'd join the energy market, which is a strange old combination. But if you get bored, I might just play you a tune afterwards. Anyway, moving on. So let's have a look at just a breakdown of what I'm going to talk about tonight. So I want to just shed a bit of light. I'm not going to go into gloom and doom about it, because we're past the point now where the energy market was at its peak. So last year, the back end of last year, we saw the energy market the highest it's ever been in living memory of the energy sector as we know it now. But there were many factors as to why. But I'm not going to go into too much detail. But basically, we had a combination of factors which produced this perfect storm of the cost of the wholesale gas specifically reaching a high. So to give you an example, not really an example, but this is the fact. On the right hand side here, the top, you've got the gas wholesale cost market, and you can see back from May 2022 to where we are coming into April now. We're into April now. You can see we had a peak, which was the September time. Now, at that time, we had lots of different factors which caused the market to spiral out of control. So coming out of COVID was a big factor. So when we were in COVID itself, we'd actually saw the market at the lowest it's ever been, because businesses were shut. The majority of businesses were shut. That meant that we couldn't give the energy away. We had so much energy, the surplus of gas in the UK, that they just couldn't give it away. So we saw prices. I'm going to talk about the unit rates tonight, because unit rates are really important if you want to save some money for your practice. So a unit rate of electricity, back as we came out of COVID or during COVID periods, you could get for about 12p, 11 to 12p, okay? During the height of the madness that we had the back end of last year, we were seeing unit rates of £1. Okay, and I know some of you may well have had this as well, and you would have seen it, that your unit rates of electricity would have spiraled to 60, 70, 80p at times. Because of that, this is where we've got into this kind of perfect storm. But the build up came from the start of COVID. When we came out of COVID, everyone went back to work, and the national grid wasn't ready to supply us fully again. So basically, they had to shut part of the national grid down when we were during lockdown, because basically, when businesses are shut down, the subsidies that you pay on your utilities, there's two parts to your utility bill. There's your unit rates of gas and electricity, and there's what you call the non-commodity costs. So non-commodity costs make up a bigger percentage of your unit rates. That will then, some of that will go to the national grid. But because businesses were shut down, they weren't using energy, they weren't getting as much money in. So they had to shut an element of it down on that. Then we kind of came into other problems. We had maintenance that was on one of the big pipelines we get our gas from, which is there's two actually. There's a Norwegian pipeline and the Nord Stream pipeline, which comes in or came in from Russia. So when we came out of lockdown, they actually then decided that they wanted to do some maintenance on those two pipes. Now, because of that, it meant we had less supply of gas coming into the UK. Then we have to get our gas from elsewhere. So another area we get our gas is called liquefied natural gas, which we get pumped in, and it gets filled into big tanks here in the UK. But that costs. And when that happens, price goes up. Also, last year, we didn't have a very good summer. So the summer was pretty poor in the sense of we didn't have a lot of solar generation. So we didn't have a very good summer. So in Europe specifically, they rely heavily actually on solar and wind for their energy, and we get an element of that into the UK. And actually in the last 6 to 8 months, we have actually seen an increase on generation from wind and solar, because they basically invested a lot more money into that infrastructure. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a bit, because green energy is something that everyone kind of needs to have a look at. Some people think energy is a little bit more expensive in the green sector. It's not necessarily the case. So we had all these little factors, and then we had a big fire in Kent back in October, which took out one of 2 power cables that came into France that supply us with electricity. When the fire happened, all of the suppliers in the commercial sector shut their doors. Basically, they weren't pricing new customers. So if you were coming out of contract last October and you want to switch, you want to go to a new supplier, there was no suppliers offering new prices, which meant you as a customer would then go on to what they call out of contract rates. When you go on to out of contract rates, you'll see those double, sometimes triple. And the problem is you couldn't go anywhere, clients couldn't go anywhere, because the suppliers were not pricing, because basically they couldn't start to afford buying the wholesale cost of the energy. And there was one thing after the other, and then obviously we had Russia going into Ukraine. Now Russia holds a main stake of gas supply into Europe. And because of that, obviously, Mr. Putin, he was holding the cards, and the wholesale cost of energy just went skyrocketing, because basically he was kind of holding us to ransom with the energy. So as a supplier in the UK, we weren't going to buy the gas from Europe because we couldn't afford it. So we needed to find our energy from somewhere else. Hence the reason the wholesale cost has increased. But we went through the Christmas period into the new year, and actually we saw a dramatic fall into the cost of the wholesale energy. Now, a lot of that, and you can see here, it's just on the graph where, we get past into January and it really does drop for gas and electricity. Now, it tends to follow suit. So gas goes first, and if gas reduces, the wholesale cost reduces in gas, then electricity follows. This is because a lot of the power stations are powered by gas to produce the electricity. So you can't really have one without the other in that sense. So that's why the pattern is very similar. But we came out of January, we had quite a mild winter. It's not been the coldest winter on record. So because of that, we didn't use as much energy, which means the storage we had in the UK we weren't using as much. We had quite a lot of wind as well. And because of that, our wind generation of electricity was quite high. So all in all, it reduced the wholesale cost of energy. We have also got away from using any gas from Europe, basically, because obviously we did rely a little bit on getting our gas from Russia, but we've kind of cut them out now. So we get all of our energy either from wind or solar, or gas from Norwegian pipelines. And we also get tankers bringing us liquefied natural gas. And just before Christmas, the government brokered a deal with America to supply us with LNG, liquefied natural gas. And that's really helped the fact we've really kind of upped our storage, hence the reason the prices have dropped. But as you can see, I just wanted to kind of give you a potted history as to why we were in this situation. But if you were a business having to procure your energy last year, you would have had the stresses of it. And I know I've spoken to a lot of members through the MPA that have gone into panic mode because they've come out of contract, they get a renewal price from their supplier, and you might have seen a doubling or trebling of your, sometimes quadrupling of your monthly cost of energy. So what can we do about it? So first things first, we do need to reduce our cost. We do need to reduce our energy usage. Okay, there are many factors of things that can be done, right? But what I'm not here tonight to do is to preach to you right, you must turn the lights off, you must do this, you must do that. That's entirely up to you. But what I want to explain is what you can potentially do that you might not have thought about. as well. So look, the unit rate of your gas and electricity is the key here. So as I mentioned, back in COVID time, you could get a unit rate of 12p. Roughly now, you might see a unit rate of 32p. That's pretty good, actually, as the market stands at the moment. So just bear that in mind. If you're in a point where you're looking for a renewal now, if you're getting a renewal rate which is 35p, 36p, that's too high. Okay, so think about if you're getting offered prices, just maybe question it if it's a little bit higher, because the market on today's market is a roughly floating around for electricity 30 to 32p. It is forecast as we come into the summer months, the spring summer months, that traditionally it's the best buying period for procuring your energy. Even if you're in a contract, now this is another thing, if you're in a contract, then you can still buy your energy on today's market price to benefit from the prices for when you come out of contract. So that kind of leads me on to the first question. Simon, do you mind popping up the first poll question?
Of course.
It's just a really question, just to kind of question yourselves as to, do you actually know when your energy renewal contract is up for renewal? Good. Well, there's no no's so far, which is actually is very good. If there was no's, you've got a bit of a problem, because if you know when your end date is up for renewal, you'll never get potentially stung to coming out of contract rates, and that's really important. That's really key. The savvy business owners are the ones that are aware of when their contracts are out, because if you don't know when you're out of contract, you might get a bill and it might get a shock when it comes to the first month out of contract as well. So just bear that in mind if you're not sure for future. Another kind of quick question as well, which is worth asking for, is meter readings. So how many of you actually read your meters on a regular basis and submit it to your supplier? Again, you're great clients, I have to say. You're very good. Due diligence is fantastic here. This is what I like to see. Now, there is a reason why it's important to read your meters on a regular basis, because if you don't, you get billed by estimate meter readings. Estimates are, in average, 10 to 15% higher than what you would normally pay. All right. Now, if you've got loads of money in the bank, you might not think that's an issue. If you haven't, and you're trying to balance the books each month, you might have money sitting in that energy account that you could claw back and you could take back and put it back into your account. Yeah. So make sure you read your meters and submit it, because again, we have seen clients that have saved thousands of pounds over a term of a year just by getting that money back in their pocket. All right. It's better in your pocket than it is the suppliers. You can get the interest on it as opposed to them. All right. Another area that has a lot of, I'm sure a lot of your practices will have this anyway, but lighting is so important. Lighting, equipment, anything that draws a lot of energy. Lighting, to give you an example. So an incandescent light, one of the old style light bulbs, and they are still around, but even some of the older LED lighting that used to be on the market, nowadays, in the last 5 to 10 years, the equipment and lighting specifically has got so much more energy efficient. So an incandescent light bulb, for example, one of the old screw bayonet light bulbs, the lifetime of that, the cost of that bulb specifically may cost you 175 to 180 pounds. All right. A single LED light bulb will cost you about 20 quid on that. So if you've got a big premises that is still running old lighting, it might pay you to get it changed, and that will reduce your energy costs as well. Another thing, smart metering. Smart metering is another area. If you've got smart meters, it's worth using. You don't have to use smart meters, but some suppliers now will stipulate when you go for a new supply with them that they want you to have a smart meter, purely because it makes their life a little bit easier, and also your life that much easier as well. Okay. If you've got more than one building, so say you might have two, you might have three practices, and I know lots of members have 2 or 3 or sometimes more. Another way to actually reduce your overall spend of energy cost is actually to consolidate your contracts. So what you can do in the commercial sector, if you've got 3 premises together, we pull all of the consumption, the annual consumption, the usage of those buildings together, and we go to a supplier and we buy it in bulk. Okay. We come across a lot of business owners that have 2 or 3 different premises, and those premises are all on different suppliers. They're all with different suppliers. They start at different times of the year. They're just all over the shop. If you put it all together, you consolidate it all, you can actually manage it where you actually get one bill that has all 3 premises on. And because of the total combined consumption, the bigger the consumption, the better the unit rates tend to be as well. So that might be something to think about if you've got more than one premises. Energy efficiency audits. This is actually something that's becoming quite a big thing. So yeah, look, change your light bulbs. That's really important. Look at the equipment that you have. Maybe you've got equipment that's circa 10 years old now. You'll find that that's definitely not energy efficient compared to what you could get nowadays. Okay, it may well be a cost, obviously, outlay, but it might save you down the line as well. But another area is you can actually get energy efficiency audits. You get people coming in to do an audit of your premises. They can see where the energy is leaking. So you might have an older building that's leaking some energy, and they can actually pinpoint exactly how much energy is going out of that specific area at any given time. Now, fill the gaps, fix the holes, fix the leaks. You're going to keep that energy in the building, which basically means that you can either heat it for a less usage as well. All right. Water audits as well. That's actually quite a big thing as well, because we have a very aging water infrastructure in the UK. We use a lot of water, okay, and the water market is now free. You're free to shop around. You don't have to go with one supplier like we traditionally used to, wherever you are in your local area. We tend to find that if you switch, you might see a saving of 5%, if you even just by switching your water. Okay, we have also helped a lot of businesses that have had problems with their water, and they get a big water bill come through, and for 1 month, and they look at it and go, well, we seem to be using a lot of water here, but we're not doing anything different. So what's going on? We can do you can get a water audit specifically for your practice or your premises, and if there's a leak that's found. And 9 times out of 10, it's a leak that's been caused by the pipes from the water companies. If that's proved that it's not your fault, then there's every chance that you will get money back for your business practice, because you've been overpaying. You've been overpaying because of their problems with their leaks. And we do that a lot for businesses, and that sometimes can add up to quite a lot of money back in your pocket. But again, unless you know how to do this and know what to do, well, why would you do it? But there are lots of different ways potentially to look at your premises and see what you can do as well. Another question I get asked a lot is EV charging. So a lot of practices that maybe are out in a kind of an industrial estate or something else, you can actually make a bit of money off EV charging as well. So whether you wanted to or not, there's some practices will take it in-house. Other practices will actually look to install a few EV chargers on their site, because obviously if customers are coming to pick up prescriptions, they might have to wait, they might want to use your facilities. It's becoming a bigger thing now to have EV cars, electric vehicles. And there are schemes around where you can actually host the EV charger, and you get paid for when the customer uses it. And you get paid a little bit, but obviously the company that installs it takes another lump sum as well. But you may well get some money back on that as well, just by hosting that EV charging. So again, another way of maybe utilizing, if you've got space to do that at your premises as well. But there are lots of different ways to do it. If you've got a big premises, right, and this is one that's I think is quite a good, a useful thing to know. If you know anything about your electricity meter or gas meter, I mean, to be honest, why would you, unless you worked in the industry? But just by understanding a few bits of terminology, may help you save some money down the line. So what we call, every meter has what they call a profile, a meter profile. What we tend to find is that business meters have, at the beginning of the meter profile, it's called the meter serial number. You can find it on the bill. It'll have an 03 or 04 at the beginning of it, or it might have an 00, a 00. Now, if you're not sure about this, feel free to drop me an email afterwards. I can show you exactly where it is to pinpoint it on your bills. And you might well be in a situation where you can save a bit of money. Because if you've got a half hourly meter, that's what they call it, a 00 profile meter, we can do what we call a KVA review. Now, a KVA review basically is how much power is going into your premises. How much power do you need to power your premises? Right? If you turned everything on, there's a capacity limit, okay? Most businesses, the capacity is set far too high for the amount that you need, okay? What can be done is we can reduce that capacity, the KVA, into your premises, which in turn reduces your unit rates, okay? But you have to ask for a review, okay? Your supplier will not do that automatically, okay? And that's something you can ask for. And that's something, if you work with a consultancy or a broker that knows how to do that, you might save a little bit of cash on your utilities. As I say, we do that on a regular basis for a lot of our businesses. Because equipment now is so energy efficient, you know, a lot of the equipment that you had 10, 15 years ago would have drawn more power than what it does today. But that KVA wouldn't have changed in your premises for that meter. So if we do a review and actually find out that you don't need that capacity, that amount that's going into that premises, that can be reduced, which in turn would reduce your costs as well on that. All right. So it's just a few little things that you might want to think about, you know, just to kind of save the bare bones of your energy, your usage as well, to reduce your usage and reduce your spend on that. Okay, let's moving on. Okay. Another area that I suppose is a big talking point, a big subject for the government, for us, for the world, is the green, is what we call the green and renewable options. Now, about 10 years ago, if a business wanted to go down the green route, generally you'd be spending a lot more money. All right, it historically would have cost you more money to obtain your energy from a green source. Now, we're in a situation where that's flipped over, right? Every supplier in the commercial sector will offer a green or renewable option, and you'll tend to find that the green and renewable options have some of the cheapest unit rates on the market for you. But your supplier might not tell you that. They'll just put you on the standard rate. So always ask the question now to go down the green and renewable rate. Now, the reason is, as it says on the screen, 68. This is yesterday. 68.5% of our energy came from a green and renewable source in the UK, which always surprises people, because I think we tend to historically think that green and renewable, but there isn't a lot of it around. We have to pay more for it. Actually, we are doing quite well with our renewable options, and if we have a windy day, that will increase. The UK has actually seen, I think it's 89.3% of our energy on one given day came from green and renewable sources. Okay, so it's a big thing, and also because it's tipped the balance, we're over 50% now. We tend to find that the green and renewable options are a little bit cheaper on the market as well. But you need to ask that question: do you want green? Another reason you want to look to go green is if you're kind of in your community, you're doing the right thing, you've got to start looking at your carbon reduction, because the government is going to start putting a lot more pressure on all businesses in the UK to reduce their carbon. Okay, one of the quickest ways to reduce your carbon is to have a green or renewable energy tariff. Okay, and that's a very simple thing to do. The reason you want to start reducing your carbon is because you're going to get a lot more pressure. Okay, so your industries, like any other businesses, may well have some form of funding in place. There might be some funding to help you develop your business. A lot of the lenders now actually ask all businesses the question, are you reducing your carbon? What are you doing about reducing your carbon? Because if you're not reducing your carbon, that bank or the lender may lend at a higher rate, or they might not lend at all to you. So there's kind of twofold things here, really. Yes, you're doing your bit for the environment, which is great. You may well find that the tariff's a little bit better than the standard, what we call the standard brown supply. And the brown supply is the gas, right? We want to get away from the reliance on gas in the UK. And this has been the problem over the last year. Because of the wholesale cost of gas, it's so expensive. Yeah, we want to get away from it. We want to start using more green renewable options. And the more we do, the more actually the wholesale cost of gas will reduce as well. As I mentioned, every supplier has a green and renewable option on the table. Just need to ask the question, really. As I mentioned as well, going green does reduce your carbon and helps with the net zero journey as well. We've got any questions so far? Just out of interest. Let's have a look.
No, we haven't as yet. No.
Okay, that's great. That's okay. Okay, let's move on. Right. So the world of commercial energy has changed a lot since we've had the high rates, the high prices. The whole energy market has gone for a bit of a shake-up. All right, and this is really important for you guys to know because it affects you. Okay, you need to know that you're not getting stung when you're procuring your energy. All right. Generally, if you use a broker or a consultant to procure your energy, you are going to get the better rate, should I say, on the market than going direct yourself. All right. The reason that people use brokers or consultants to procure their energy is because brokers and consultants generally have a whole market reach. You as a business owner will only have a select amount of suppliers that you can go to, because there's a lot of suppliers out there that do not work with you directly and won't work with you directly. They'll work through consultancies. A bit like a mortgage advisor or a mortgage lender or a financial advisor. They'll have access to people in the market that you won't. So it's the same with the energy as well. Now, Ofgem, who are the regulator for the industry, they've brought in a new scheme to basically tidy up the broker and consultancy industry. It's more broker. So the term broker sounds a bit underhand. It's a bit messy. It sounds a bit, wheeler dealer. Let's do something under the back door kind of thing. Ofgem have brought this scheme into place that all brokers, all consultants in the UK that you work with have to be signed up to Ofgem's dispute resolution. Okay, now you might want to fall asleep with this bit. It's not the most exciting part of it, but basically what it means is here to protect businesses like yourself. All right. So all brokers and consultants, they make their money from helping you. Okay. You must never pay a consultant or broker to get a price for you directly. Okay. No money should change hands between you and the broker. The only money that changes hands in procurement is between you and the supplier. All right, that's first and foremost. That's the important part here. The broker will make their money from the supplier based on your unit rates that you pay. Okay, it's like an admin fee that the consultants will get back. Now, when you get offered a price from a consultant or a broker, it should clearly state on their contracts before you sign how much they make, what their fee structures are, and the terms of the contract. If they don't, they technically are breaking the regulations of Ofgem, and basically you could take them to court. Okay, and you could get your money back and more. So it's something to be aware of, because we have had a lot of practices, and also have had a lot of pharmacies actually that have been stung by underhand brokers that may put them into a verbal contract on the phone, and then the pharmacy is stuck in a 5-year contract deal. And the thing is, in the commercial sector, if you sign a contract, whether it's verbal or a signed document, you're tied in. You can't break that term of the contract unless it's deemed that you've been missold. All right. So this has been brought in to hopefully tidy up the market, hopefully tidy up the industry and make it a bit more transparent for you. But please don't start paying brokers, consultants directly for a procurement service, because you shouldn't have to do that. Also, you want to know what's the difference between a broker and a consultant. So a broker will broker a price for you. They'll give you a unit rate and away they go. And that's it. That's all they're going to do for you. But a consultant does a bit more, but doesn't charge you any extra for this either. And consultants shouldn't do this, shouldn't charge you any extra for doing the extra support. So if you're a client, for example, you don't want to be dealing with your utilities. Okay, you come to the end of a contract, you might have 1 or 2 premises, for example, that you're going to deal with. You might have 3 or 4, who knows? But if you had to deal with that directly yourself, that's your time, okay, and effort. A lot of good consultancies will offer a full support of any of your premises. So you've got any queries or questions, you don't have to go to the supplier. You can go directly to the consultant to basically troubleshoot for you. All right. Another thing just to bear in mind is don't settle for a renewal quote from your supplier. So you'll all get renewal quotes from your suppliers. They'll say, this is the best rate we can offer you. Well, it's always not going to be the best rate that they can offer you. All right. Make sure you use a broker or consultant to at least just fact find and see, am I getting the best rates on the market? If I'm not, why am I not getting the best rates? Okay. So just don't always settle for that supplier renewal quote. The other thing you don't want to do is use price comparison websites, because again, you're not going to get a whole market reach. Now, this is another really important part here. Brokers tend to not get a whole market reach, i.e. they don't have access to the whole market of all the suppliers. Consultancies will do. All right, and this is a different areas here just to bear in mind. Okay, when you use a pricing comparison website, you're technically using a broker. Okay, it's the same with car insurance. Some of the cheapest car insurance you won't find on comparison websites, because those comparison websites are actually making money from you using them as well. Okay, so I think that the general message here is make sure you shop around. Okay, because if you don't shop around and use a whole market reach, you're never going to get the best rates on the market. And considering we've seen the cost of wholesale energy in the last 6 to 8 months make or break a lot of businesses, and it really has done, in lots of sectors, it's wise to start shopping around properly for it as well. All right. So I hope in some respects that's giving you a few tips and useful information to kind of go along and go away with. Look, the world of energy is a crazy place, and it's a very expensive place. And I know it's a big pain point for a lot of business owners, especially your sector. You work long hours. It's the last thing you want to be doing is dealing with your utilities. And hopefully you need someone that's got your back, that can help you out here and make sure you get independent advice. And I think that's the key part here. But also just make sure that whoever you use, whether it's someone like us or it's another broker, another consultancy, that you ask them the right questions, the right call to actions, because they could easily lead you down the garden path where they lock you into a very long contract and you can't do anything about it. All right. So it's just bearing in mind and just understanding a bit more of the information that goes with it. I'm going to open it up to some questions. If you've got any questions, if you haven't, there's not a problem. If you do want to ask me some questions via email, feel free to do that. You can scan those QR codes, or you can contact us on the number below, or Simon, I'm sure, will circulate the information through the MPA, which is on the MPA's website as well. And there's also, I just want to point out, there's a few articles there. It's worth having a look to help with your energy efficiency if you want to revisit that at another date. But again, look, energy is a very expensive topic at the moment, and I know is a huge cause for concern for a lot of you out there. So I hope that's given you a few tips and a bit more understanding of what's been going on in the market to help you potentially reduce some of your utility spend. Simon.
Brilliant, thank you, Jeff. So yeah, so much interesting stuff there. It's funny. I always think it's funny. You don't know what you don't know with these things. I think sometimes there's so much, and some fantastic tips there. So thank you. But yeah, over to our audience. So please, take advantage while we got Jeff here. If you want to raise your hand, you can come in and ask in person, or if you want to pop a message in the chat, we'll give you a couple of minutes just to do that. Please do send in any questions you might have.
Yeah. I mean, we had a member come in today, actually, I think, who literally was out of contract. They didn't realise they were out of contract, and their bill was £600 more this month than it was previous month, because they were suddenly rolled out of contract and hadn't realised. The problem with that is the supply. We can switch the client. We can get a client onto a new contract quite quickly, but there's still a month period where they can't go anywhere. There's a switching period of 30 days, right? So sometimes if you don't catch it in time, you might end up having 2 months of high energy costs, which again, could run into thousands in some respects as well. So it's just being on it, really, if you can, on that.
Of course. And I mean, my knowledge is limited really to sort of privates from my own use, I suppose. But
yeah,
is there still a sort of hangover from some of the companies going bust and then people being put into companies that they didn't necessarily choose, or is that kind of ironed itself out, or are people still
so
contracts they shouldn't necessarily be in?
Yeah, so in the there's two markets in the energy sector. There's two markets. So there's a domestic market, which is a very different beast, actually. Right. We saw a lot of suppliers go under in the domestic sector. And you tend to find in the domestic sector, if a supplier goes under, if you're with a supplier that goes bust, you're a bit stuck, actually, until another supplier comes along and takes that contract up for you. But the problem is you're not really protected either, because that new supplier could not honor the rates. They don't have to honor the rates. They don't have to honor the credit that you might have in that account. If you've got debt on that account, they will come chasing for it, because they're taking on a new supplier's or the old supplier's finances in some respects as well. In the commercial sector, we tend to find that there's a lot more protection with that. All right, so we don't get many suppliers go bust in the commercial sector, because it's a very different beast. The government puts a lot more kind of help and support for suppliers, which is a bit of a strange one, because you think they should be helping more businesses, which is another quick point, because obviously over October to March, the government put this business energy relief scheme in place, which has ended now. And to be quite honest, there's not a lot of support going on from the government in this sector at the moment. But there is talk that they are starting to look at potentially another form of relief for businesses, because they've realised that they've done 6 months of energy relief, and now suddenly just gone, and it's putting a lot of strain back onto the business owners. And there are certain sectors that are that should be more priority in some respects. So, this is a health area. This is an area that people need. If you don't stay open as a pharmacy, then that means, your customers are going to have to go elsewhere when they actually need your services. So I think Simon, I was saying, I did a veterinary association. It's the same, the veterinary association, for example, their members, they're struggling with their energy, and they weren't getting support from the government, but there's still animals that needed the care, and the government are now starting to rethink about this help and support. So maybe, hopefully, in the next couple of weeks, that the government might come up with some other form of package that maybe we're able to help out in this sector as well. But if that is the case, you won't actually have to do anything to get that. By very virtue, the suppliers will automatically advise you and tell you if that is the case. So you won't have to apply for anything on that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jeff. Okay. We don't seem to can't see any questions, I think. So we've got lots of really useful information to digest, I think. So, but as you mentioned, there's QR codes there. People can link. They can go via the MPA website and find you that way and communicate with you that way should they have any questions. And as I mentioned, I think Jeff mentioned, and I've mentioned on the chat as well, this is all recorded. So if you need to share with your branch managers, colleagues, what have you, please feel free. You can share that from tomorrow on the MBA website. And again, you'll be able to get the contact details from there as well, should you need them. But Jeff, I think there was one more poll we were going to run, actually.
Yes,
if we want to do that
pop it
before
on.
people go.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Just for those that are remaining. So the question, I think, what do you look for when procuring your energy?
That was the one. Yes. Yeah. So yeah.
Easy to miss these ones.
Is it low rates? Is it green only suppliers? Is it better service? Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
bullet at the moment. Yeah. Oh no.
Lowest rates. Yeah. So like based on what I was talking about earlier, the low rates could well be a green supplier as well. So you're getting double bubble. It's interesting to know that I know some business owners do want to go for the green option because that is the right way to go, for us as an environment, but again, it's understanding what is green as well. What is green energy? There are different sources of energy, but actually just to finally touch upon the differences between the green energy and the standard dirty stuff. Green energy is anything that comes from wind or solar generation. Renewable energy is anything that comes from hydro or nuclear. And then obviously your dirty stuff is your coal and fossil fuels burning as well. So but as I said, we are starting to see a lot more generation now of green and renewable in the UK.
Fantastic.
Interested.
Okay, well, I think we'll leave it there. So thank you very much, Jeff, for that. Honestly, that was fascinating. Lots of useful things there, so our members can take that away and affect some good change in their business and save some money ultimately. So, and thank you to our audience for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. And thanks again, Jeff.
Cheers, Simon. Thanks for having us.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye.